I want to thank you for joining us. I'll mute everybody. One moment, mute all.
Yeah.
You are the only one, you unmuted as well, and I also gonna make you a co-host so you can record it and you can...
Yeah, you record and then I will put the
I'm
recording you
recording
made
anyway.
on my, exactly, super.
I'm recording anyway. So pleased to meet everybody. My name is Boaz Arad, and we are participating in a project that called Zoom2Freedom, that we started during the Corona days when everybody moved to the Zoom, and we started to transfer all our event in Israel to the virtual room of Zoom. And the upside of it that we can spread wing and connect with people all around the world, and this is one of the benefits that we will cash in today on. And we have the privilege and honor to host Jaroslav Romanchuk. I hope I pronounce it correctly with my Israeli accent. And he lives in Minsk, Belarus, and he's the executive director of the Analytical Center Strategy and president of the Scientific Research Mises Center, and was a candidate for presidency of Belarus in 2010. So you know the process intimately. And he wrote several books, among them In Search of Economic Miracle, and Belarus Road to Future, and he served on the Supreme Council of the Republic of Belarus Commission of Economic Policy Reform. And he worked and published many position paper, working paper on reform in Belarus. Now, the most, I would say, most interesting item in his bio was that he was also the translator of Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand to Russian. And so before we'll dive into the grim reality and the situation, the first question I want, among many questions I want to ask you, is about Ayn Rand, your fascination with Ayn Rand, and how come you dive into this huge work of translating Ayn Rand, and what is the effect of it? How do you see it affecting your life and the life of people around you in Belarus?
Thank you for having me in this show. Looking forward to a lot of conversation and mutual friendship with you guys worldwide. And really, when you talk about the importance of one book, that was also a meeting that changed my life without any exaggeration. I graduated, my first education was Belarus, Minsk Linguistic University. That's why I was fascinated by English and American literature, and I studied that in depth, wrote a lot of papers on D.H. Lawrence, Goldsworthy, many other writers that were taught in Minsk. And then after the university, after the breakup of the Soviet Union, due to dire material conditions in Belarus, I switched on to business. Before switching on to business, I was head of the Department of Foreign Affairs of one of the business associations, and I dealt with people-to-people exchange. So we invited Americans to come to Belarus, like fact-finding mission. They traveled from Kiev, Minsk, Petersburg, and Moscow, exploring what life was about in this part of the world after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Iron Curtain. And one of the meetings was with American foresters. And Charles and Susanna Tomlinson, dedicated, passionate objectivists from Alabama. So we just had a different exchange about different situation, and then said they asked me about morality of capitalism or morality of economy. I've never heard of capitalism and these things. So they said, okay. So we had a wonderful conversation, and they, like in 1 or 2 months, sent me Atlas Shrugged. And I've never heard of the author. And when I started reading that, the first phrase was just, was kind of very ignited my interest. Who's John Galt? What is it an idiom? Is it somewhere a name? Who is this guy? And so I started asking professors in my university, referring to Webster Dictionary, Heritage Dictionary, all sorts of things. Nobody knew. So I started reading that. And that was like the beginning of the end of my old life and the beginning of my new life. I read Atlas Shrugged, and then I wrote, there's a kind of, this short and advertising paper in Ayn Rand books. So I tore it and wrote a letter to Ayn Rand Institute asking for more books. So they sent me like 10 more books, including Fountainhead, With a Living, major Ayn Rand books, and plus they sent me Henry Hazlitt, Economics in One Lesson, and Human Action, Ludwig von Mises. And so with my linguistic background, I like the rudimentary knowledge in economy, business, all that. The first book on economics, economic theory, and human action in general was, apart from literature, because then I read, of course, Fountainhead and With a Living and many objectivism, the unknown ideal, philosophy, the unknown ideal. Then I read Human Action. I said, oh, wonderful. I love that because it's so common sense. It's so true. And then I read Socialism, the book by Ludwig von Mises, and was so surprised that Ayn Rand describing life in fiction way was so true to life, what I saw in reality. Actually, these pictures from old factory, for the relations between managers and owners, private sector versus government officials, government state enterprises on the one hand, and then we would like Ayn Rand Mises, for me, what was also like very illuminating in describing the way theoretically why socialism must collapse. And that's like, for me, that was like, oh, wonderful. I didn't know, I wasn't brainwashed by a Soviet political economy in such a great way if I had graduated from economics university. So that I was lucky, I was blessed by that. And starting from that, like that was like 1993, I believe. And starting from that time, I could not share my joy, my excitement with anybody because nobody knew Ayn Rand, nobody knew Atlas Shrugged, Fountainhead, Morality of Capital. That was like a absolutely new ideas and new information. So I say, well, I must translate that because there's no way this part of the world doesn't know it. So we started doing that, and I came across Glenn Cripes, who was an IT guy from California. Then there was Dmitry Kostigin from St. Petersburg. And but they translated that, but they lost the translation somehow. That they had only the paper. So we took efforts, and that was for us, that was okay. I should have it like, there's a Russian word, samizdat, like self-made publication, almost without censorship, anything. For me, we made like 500 copies of Fountainhead, 500 copies of Atlas Shrugged, and I just gave it to all my friends so they can share my excitement and get the flavor of this wonderful literature and philosophy. And after that, I was in business for like 5 years, and then I switched on to analytical work in the parliament. I was part of the team to kind of manage economic reforms, but they were like wound up very, very quickly because Lukashenko took power in 1994, and of course he's like Soviet-style Lenin, Bolshevik, Marx in one package, so he was not interested in any reform. But I was in the Supreme Council that time, in the parliament, and I joined the first think tank analytical center that was East-West, which was then closed down by Lukashenko. And so that was the beginning of my intellectual career. Then I entered postgraduate courses on economics. And that was like, for me, with business background knowledge, with linguistic knowledge, I explored and studied economics, big things, major economic theories. But by that time, I was like self-trained in Austrian School of Economics and Philosophy in general. And I knew business because I knew how it was to, how when goods trade borders, what it is about inflation, what it is about exchange rates, about licensing, about taxation. So I was like, not that first I got theoretical knowledge, and then I studied business. I first was like trained in business reality, and then I got my theoretical background. And since that time, like 1996, I started writing extensively. I wrote economic programs for the first shadow government of the country, which was like in opposition to Lukashenko. And then when our first think tank was closed down, we opened the Analytical Center Strategy to do a lot of work on security issues, regional development issues, like major broad things to introduce Belarus to development in general, like on different levels. And then in 2001 or 2, I started Mises Center in order to advocate free market ideas. And of course, for me, I always wonder why Americans like quarrel when they meet each other. One Randian, Misesian, Rothbardian, libertarians. Like when you go to America, gosh, like hair splitting is so obvious. For me, that was like, there's no way. Like we have Marxists, Bolsheviks, Soviet-style people, and free market people. So for us, like it was black and white. And I was a champion of that movement in my country. And then we started advocating these ideas in different many ways. And I remember my friend, ex-Putin advisor, Andrei Larionov. So I urged him to make Ayn Rand presentation in Moscow. That was like, I think, 2000. And with Dmitry Kostingin, Andrei Larionov, and I, we presented Ayn Rand books in Moscow. That was like very big event. And Andrei Larionov said that he gave Putin Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead, and the books are on the shelves of Mr. Putin. So that was our hope that by introducing these ideas, Russia would move away from mysticism, from its imperialistic way, and try to explore and practice different set of ideas. And it was the case for like 5 years, and then Putin began to favor not objectivist libertarians, but mystics, Russian Orthodox Church guys, people with uniform, people who dreamt about restoring historical Russia. That was like by 2005, 2006. Yeah. In my case, in 1994, even before we had this window of opportunity, before election, first presidential election, I wanted to set up an objectivist party named after philosophy Ayn Rand. So I wrote even the program of the party. So like I wanted to make it like the ideology of reforms in Belarus. And then I somehow, my colleagues told me, well, let's do things together. So I became one of the founders of the classical liberal party in Belarus. And then in 1999, I believe, I became vice chairman of the party, responsible for all programs, documents, concepts. And for me, that was the tool to promote these ideas throughout the country. And I did that for 11 years, being vice chairman of the party. I ran for parliament 3 times, also with the purpose to promote Ayn Rand, essentially ideas of liberty. And the presidential campaign was also aimed at broadening the scope, the debate range in our country, introducing true free market ideas and true objectivism, Ayn Rand. And the outcome of that activity, well, of course, it's definitely, I could not say that I'm the only one, but we definitely contributed to that, was that Ayn Rand was then translated and introduced by Alpina Publishing House, and they became a bestseller. Then Ukraine, yeah, exactly.
I got the books over here.
Yeah, super, yeah, that's it.
I got the
Alpina,
package here.
Then Yevgeny Chichvarkin fell in love with Ayn Rand. Then we introduced that to Ukrainians, and that is now in Ukraine bestseller list. So the word is spreading, and I'm so happy that when I talk to my Russian colleagues, now they have an Ayn Rand website. Recently there was a conference, and some scholars, Grigorovska Anya in Moscow, I have some PhD guys here in Belarus who majored in Ayn Rand. And I remember at one point, 2004, I believe, when I, through my friends network in America, they sent 150 copies of Fountainhead, and I gave this kind of gift to two major universities, Belarusian Linguistic University and European Humanities University. But unfortunately, the books were there in the library, but in order to approve Ayn Rand for studying English as a part of the course on homeschool reading, or home reading, they said. We didn't have enough power inside the university to do that. But still, now it's we have social network groups in Russian dedicated to Ayn Rand, hundreds of thousands of people. So I'm lucky that these ideas are in. And now what I do, I try to base whatever economic institutional reforms on ideology of Ayn Rand and on, of course, Austrian School of Economics, which I consider the only economic science that is still alive.
Yeah. Before we'll move to the revolution part of the conversation, I want to quote a short quote by Ayn Rand that she wrote in order to promote the sales of her book. And she said, "A revolution starts in men's minds, not in the streets."
Yeah, absolutely.
So in a way, we touch this core event of bringing Ayn Rand to Russia and to Belarus and to Ukraine, and we can move to the revolution part now in the streets.
Right. So it's in the context of three revolutions in Ukraine, in Moldova, you know, in Georgia, in Tunis, in Algeria. I visited these countries with like advocacy to build better investment climate, for business reform climate. And so I told them, guys, the reason that you fail, they do not deliver, is that there is no revolution of ideas. The only meaningful revolution is the revolution of ideas. If you don't work on this area, you can have a kind of a hype event where everybody is full of joy, but without that, then the revolution is captured by interventionists, by statists, by all kinds of people who want to manage other people's money and lives. And that is why in Belarus right now, we have this revolutionary type of the mood when you have millions of people voting for change. And the only Lukashenko has been in power for 26 years. And for those who do not follow Belarus, just keep in mind that we haven't had free and fair elections for 25 years. The last time we had free and fair election was 1995. And so the mechanisms of falsifying elections results are very sophisticated, and many, many people in the West could not even believe that. That's why this is kind of illusion or myth that Lukashenko, no matter what, still is a president because most of Belarusians voted for him. That's not a lie, especially after the 9th of August election. We always put it in the inverted commas because we don't have, I call it political performance called presidential election, because we don't have any influence, any control of the vote count. Our election commissions are formed by the authorities. Early voting is the best way to falsify results, and the early voting in Belarus. So we start elections on Tuesday, and election and vote casting lasts till Sunday. So from Tuesday to Saturday, over to 41% of Belarusian voters cast their votes according to Central Election Commission. So that's why we have no control over that. And of course, this is kind of the advantage that Lukashenko had over all his opponents. But even that, we had opinion polls, we asked on different online platforms, what is the popularity for whom you voted, and overwhelmingly Svetlana Tikhanovskaya won the election, the one that was again put a lot of psychological pressure. That's no doubt was psychological torture. The one that also came through, that I also was a victim of in 2010. I was also like tortured by the authorities to make the statement publicly. And in this case, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya also made a statement being hostage of the whole situation. And right now we are in the position when neither Lukashenko nor Tikhanovskaya can prove that they had valid, legitimate results, and she or he can be called a winner of the election. According to many sources, Tikhanovskaya definitely won, but these kind of arguments are not like, you have ballot papers and this is it. So you have like 70% of ballot papers for Tikhanovskaya and 30% or 25% for Lukashenko. We had pictures of burnt ballot papers already. So we don't have legislation to keep them for 10 years in order then to audit them, to check. There's no way to check results because the ground information is destroyed. And when 9th of August, when it all started, that was the first night of brutality, sadism, torture, and ungrounded aggression of the special forces against against ordinary people. So people just waved hands, they wore this sign that you are in favor of change, and Tikhanovskaya was a kind of like a white ribbon, a white anything. You can white blouse, white trousers, white belt, whatever white. And we did that. And so, and police, they didn't care whether you destroyed or violated any law. They said, okay, you're wearing something white, go to the special vehicles that turned into this first stage of torturing people. Some of my friends went through that, and that was like, for the evidence for the tribunal against the regime, because we all compare this kind of behavior of police, special police, with Nazi behavior, with sadists who tortured their own people. There's no way. Even Russians who have this special interest in Belarus said that it's absolutely unacceptable. So, and then Lukashenko said that his justification was that these are the means to save the country, to preserve independence, because there's aggression against the country. But look at the streets and who was beaten, like ordinary people, girls, old women. I lived not far in the place where there was one of those very severe clash between special police and the people. And they said that was like, bloody mess. It's all so bad. One woman walked on the pavement to buy something, and she was beaten so severely that she could hardly work. So the protesters helped her to the house. We had sadist videos when ladies, they just tortured people by saying, okay, you'll be raped talking to ladies, or you'll be like, you'll be raped talking to a man. And she deliberately said that you should be beaten, you should beat guys in their testicles and their private parts. That's kind of this sadistic things that right now everybody is so outraged. And I think that was one of the triggers why workers of state plants, not private plants, when they saw all these things, because we had 3 days without any internet. The internet was cut off. So we didn't have any messengers, any social networks, any internet to any website activities, because that was cut off completely. And when people started learning what happened during these 3 days, the outrage was everywhere. And it doesn't matter whether you are like left or right, pro-Russian, pro-European Union, state, private, that was like basic humanity, basic value kind of framework. If you don't have it, you're worse than an animal. That's simple as that. And workers, when they saw that, say, no, 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 we want change. And so the agenda now of all those millions of people right now countrywide is very simple. First, stop brutality. Second, free all prisoners, including political prisoners. Third, punish according to law those bastards and people who tortured Belarusians, and free and fair elections. So that's no doubt about it. Nobody considers Lukashenko to be a legitimate president anymore. And so, and when he today staged his the meeting of his supporters, he could hardly get even 20,000 from all the country, while only in Minsk we have over 300,000, and all other cities are like booming with protesting people and demanding Lukashenko to go. So we are like this clash. Still, the clash in the last like 4 days is peaceful. Police stopped brutality because police saw that it's not about like provocation. It's not about Russian Wagner special mercenaries. This is not about, of course, Polish, Lithuanian guerrillas who tried to ignite another Orange Revolution. That's about genuine indignation of the ordinary Belarusians. They want truth, they want justice, and they want to be back on the track to civilization.
Yeah, and though the protesters that are held in prison been released, or there is a chance that they will be released soon?
Some of them are being released. So were released, like hundreds of them, or like I think that probably the number we had the latest count was about over 7,000 people were detained and arrested. About 2,000 or 3,000 were released. But right even now, like one of my friends, a libertarian, Zhenya Romanchuk in Baranovich, was detained. Nobody knew what happened to him, so we were very much afraid. And we had a lot of evidence of severe beating in custody in detention centers. And according to some unconfirmed information, over 80 people are still missing. 80 people. Allegedly, they were murdered, tortured by special troops. There was a funeral of the first on Saturday, 34-year-old guy in Minsk. We had hundreds, dozens of thousands of people to commemorate, to honor his memory and his life. The 25-year-old guy from Gomel, he had a very weak heart, and when police got him into this special vehicle, there was not enough air, and when then also in prison. Just imagine a prison cell for 5 or 4. And for 50 persons inside of it. So 1 liter of water for that. No food for 3 days. Just, this is like, insanity, and as Nazis, I think, treated their victims, and like with better, bigger degree of humanity, and I don't know how to even to compare that. So it's like when people are knowing that all these facts, it's kind of, you are so full of rage, and now when more information we get about the fate of these 80 people, I think that people would just smash this regime to pieces. There's no way anybody can save it. It's we have a lot of colonels, majors, soldiers, special troops, tearing apart their contracts, leaving the services. We had this even revolt on Belarusian television propaganda TV that brainwashed people for 25 years. We have the first diplomat in Slovakia saying that he supports the people, and he decided to join us rather than to stay with Lukashenko. So many, even his strong force for the state-owned enterprises, he fed them, he gave them loans, he pardoned their debts, and they are like dozens of them. The biggest ones, oil refineries, fertilizer plant, chemical plants, tractor plant, track plant, all of them got together and demand not free perks, free lunches from the government. They demand justice and they demand Lukashenko to leave. So it's like there's a Lukashenko doesn't want to listen to anybody who offers him assistance in intimidation in talks, how to leave power. And at the same time, he's in a kind of very peculiar situation. He asked Putin for assistance, and this is kind of one of those tricky situations. If Lukashenko is still in power, holds power, but to substitute him with Russian police and so-called green persons, as you know from the Crimea, would be a disaster. So we are very careful not to make these mistakes, but different negotiations are going on, but the will of the people is so obvious that and again, it's not about against Russia, it's not against European Union, it's absolutely against one person and his dictatorship.
Yeah, and what is the chance that we'll see a change of the system, which means what will be the straw that will break the, we say the camel back, or the element that you can point on that will change the balance of power to a change, and what is the risk involved?
Balance, right. The balance of power inside Lukashenko institutions and organizations, because he has lost youth, he has lost state-owned enterprises, he has lost, of course, information field. Even Russia is criticizing him, everybody. So that's obvious that if he does not want to even to fire Minister of Internal Affairs. He doesn't want to fire those torturers. His attitude is, well, you are to blame yourself. As you remember in March, when asked about coronavirus, I said, oh, it's your fault that you got coronavirus. And if you had eaten lard and drank vodka and went to sauna, you would have been healthy. That's his attitude. And at one point he said, well, do you see coronavirus? You don't see it, so it does not exist. Forget about it. But then when he was ill with coronavirus himself. And so it's likewise with this. I think that if people learn the truth about those 80 plus missing Belarusians, and when people had learned that they were murdered brutally in prison and detention centers, I'm sure that after that, there is no legitimate power, no legitimate structure that would support Lukashenko. That would be that last straw that would break the back of the regime.
Okay, I will tell everybody here, if you like to speak, you may raise a hand, make a sign, or write something so I can open your mic. And I see that Igor like to. Yeah, Igor, I unmute you, so please, Igor, take the stand and ask what you like to ask.
I'm sorry, I was born in Belarus and I'm in Israel since 1990, but I still in touch with the homeland. I have two homelands. So my question is, what is the next step? If this conflict will escalate to next level, more violent level, what do you think?
There is such a risk, of course, because nobody knows what on Lukashenko's mind. He's absolutely unpredictable. I'm sure that the people around him are part of this distortion of information and the reality, because when there is a discussion, so everybody asks right now, everybody with common sense, why on earth did he want to put 80% in the situation like that? That was obviously a huge mistake by somebody who's either ignorant or deliberately wanted to destroy him. And if it turns violent, and if he appeals to Russian special forces or the green persons, that could be very, very dangerous for the existence of Belarus. And in this case, we definitely would appeal to international community to preserve independence. And the only factor that makes me optimistic that it would never happen is that Russia is much more interested in Ukraine, in all Ukraine, than Belarus. If it occupies Belarus, then the Russian regime that is having problems of its own, not to mention Khabarovsk, not to mention economic crisis, not to mention oil situation and erosion of governance, then that will be another huge blow to Putin and the regime. And there's one thing that you should keep in mind. Unlike Ukraine, most of you are from Belarus, right? Most of the people here in Belarus speak Russian. There is no alienation to the Russian language, Russian culture. Unfortunately, we have the major source of information, Russian TV, which is propaganda, pure and simple. And so we have very good relations with them. So there's no biggest factor of, oh, Russian people are discriminated against, are like beaten, or they are forced out of the country. There's no way for that. And Lukashenko and Belarusians, when Russians are asked about attitude to different peoples, different countries, Belarus is like tops the list with over 75% of sympathy. So the Kremlin should really think hard before it starts any military intervention. So that's like, but inside the country, anything can happen. And one of the scenarios could be, as you know, from V for Vendetta, that there must be somebody from inside force structures, intelligence, or whatever structures that would say no to this kind of attitude. That's why that's also possible.
And what do you think about foreign support? For example, in case of a violent conflict with government, will other countries like Poland, like Ukraine, like Lithuania, will they help you?
They do help us. The president of Lithuania offered his assistance and his plan to neutralize, to handle the crisis. Of course, the plan was abandoned and was rejected by Lukashenko. He said, why should we have any discussion, negotiation with whom? So he does not recognize the victory of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the revolt of the people, and his losing his fragile legitimacy. Poland and European Union and the United States are in negotiations to have one common position. Ukraine is also likely to join that political position. But right now, here we talk about material support. The Russians themselves, they got about $1.7 million to support those who suffered from repression in the last days. We had some IT people saying that, that for addressing the special troops and police, if you are ready to leave the regime to leave brutality and join us, then I will help you materially through these difficult times. We have the foundation for the workers who could be fired from factories if they are fired for taking position and being on strike. So it's like getting together in this area is much more important than any military intervention that definitely will not welcome. It will not be the solution of the problem. It would lead to much more bloodshed that nobody wants here. So I think that's a matter of kind of two parties. And on the one hand, we have legitimacy, we have many more people, and the truth is on our side. The regime is still very brutal, and but it is losing. It's not that homogeneous anymore. So hopefully it will not be it will never be as brutal as it was for the first 3 days after the 9th of August. And then there will be one way or another negotiation. Lukashenko is having good business relations with Austrian business, so we hope that some Austrian big VIPs would step in and talk to him. He has good relations with some Jewish businessmen. I'm sure that they do a lot of business in Belarus, I know that. He is in good friendly terms with Mikhail Saakashvili. We talked with Pata on that, and no matter what you think about Saakashvili, Lukashenko calls him his friend for 10 years. So somehow we need, yeah, it's definitely strange, but in this area, we need soft power to kind of highlight to Lukashenko what status he is in and how to move on. Because in October, November, when economic and social crisis hits the country much stronger, and there will be, to add insult to injury, there will be much more pressure, and the economy will be shambles, and the way out of it would be much more brutal, I believe.
And
Yeah.
I like to give Michael passing the stage. You want to ask something, Michael? Go along.
Hello. Yes, I was also born in Gomel and came here in 1990. And I have two questions. One, a follow-up for the previous question. That we know that Poland and the USA just had a defense agreement, and this may make Moscow be more interested in Belarus. And the other one is what kind of news or YouTube channels do you think are not propaganda? Because my grandma always watches Doge and stuff like that.
Why? Well, thank you for your questions. Gomel, now we had this funeral kind of ceremony of the 25-year-old guy who was the second official victim of the regime, as I told you. So this Gomel again, when there was campaign, Gomel faced 15,000 demonstrations in support of change. So Gomel definitely is no longer a stronghold for Lukashenko, as Lukashenko used to argue. Yes, well, this military agreement and moving troops closer to border of Belarus is a factor of nervousness for Lukashenko, and definitely Putin puts pressure on Lukashenko to expand military bases. We have one military base in Baranovichi. I think there are over 2,000 troops are there. It's not that meaningful, but again, the Crimea also didn't have that many official soldiers there. So in case of strong emergency, of course, this military base can be expanded, and that's what we are also afraid of. But in terms of challenging the decision of Poland and the United States, Russia has Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad is the location of the military base and some rockets and missiles, I believe. So in this case, with the speed of missiles and the technology, I don't think that Belarus would be the kind of threatened or will be used as a platform for further military expansion. But what we are afraid of, and something that Lukashenko made clear many times, that when Ukrainian leaders ask him whether Belarus would ever be the country of invasion, of course not by Belarusians but by Russians, he just pledged that it will never happen in his lifetime. So again, if Russia urged Lukashenko to sign 31 roadmaps of integration and practically transferring powers to the subnational level and military power de facto to Russia, then Lukashenko would be such a weak person that he would rather be ignored in making strategic decisions by Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine.
And the second question?
Yeah, which one was?
The media, what channels are...
Okay, thank you, that's it. I strongly recommend all Belarusians to forget about television altogether. We have Nechta Live, which it's a Telegram channel that now has the audience over 2 million. So it grew from 100,000 to 2 million within like 2 weeks, because that is the source of current information, video, audio. People just send pictures, video recordings, some major burning news to that particular Nechta Live. Nechta, we have some Yeah, exactly, Igor. And this is the best information. So if you have 2 million, it's not about like only foreign audience. It's all about Belarusians, and Belarusians now, even Belarusian television journalists had a meeting yesterday, and they put our national flag on the building of Teleradio, Belarusian television. That's definitely the some change, but the biggest, of course, challenge is the presence of Russian media, Russian TV channels in Belarus. People watch Solovyov shows, people watch Orte, people watch all these propaganda mouthpieces that definitely poison minds of the people, and that's why now this have even. When they ask about Georgia or Ukraine, very many Belarusians still have the Russian official propaganda view, because the Belarusian television is so clumsy, it's so unprofessional, it's so weak. There's no pluralism at all. So that was like, it was squeezed out of existence. And that's why we always say, okay, go form your own information field. You have Telegram channels, we have Facebook, we have Vkontakte. The people's popular social network is Odnoklassniki. It's not only about like mushrooms, hunting, love, whatever. It definitely must be taken into consideration by intellectuals, because intellectuals, you know, are like in our country, oh, Facebook is for us. Ordinary people, we don't care about them. That was this kind of ignorance and arrogance of intellectuals vis-a-vis ordinary people. Right now, we're beginning to understand how it is important to spread the word out, to advocate ideas to ordinary people in their own words. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, I'll mention just that Michael was one of the major players in Student for Liberty in Israel, and in managing freedom activity in Ben Gurion University. And the next person to ask is Jimmy Levy. Jimmy is the manager of IFC, which is Israel Free Market Coalition. It's an organization that's trying to synchronize between different free market organizations. Jimmy, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, nice to meet you. Yeah, free market organizations that already exist and to strengthen them. So first of all, I wish you a successful and peaceful revolution that you can make some change there. But I'm assuming, okay, so I understand many in the country do want change and they're sick of someone that's there for 25 years and they want someone new. But I'm assuming that still there's a small percentage that understand Ayn Rand and capitalism and freedom. And what's the percentage of the people, even the ones that want the change, that will go in that direction? What is the percentage of people that even understand it or are asking for it?
Very good point. And that's why I was politically active and ran for president and parliament. And essentially, I'm in Belarusian media. I'm a #1 economist and like thinker in Facebook coverage. My daily audience is over 300,000 people, but some materials reached over 1 million because of they are republished by major opposition websites. So we've been in touch with journalists on a good level. Another important like social groups that I've been working with is business community entrepreneurship. I chaired the working group on making national business platform and integrating ideas of liberty into that particular document. We made like 13 national business platforms, and essentially we united all major business associations countrywide. We had the dialogue, direct dialogue with the government ministries, and the movement was so consolidated that they could not even refuse that. But out of business community, intellectual community, young people, think tankers, I think that the number of the people who would support libertarianism or objectivism, which is a different thing, not that popular, would be like 10-15% of the vote. That's I got when I campaigned 2010. I got about 10% of the vote with very minimal resources, and I definitely ran for the president on a libertarian basis. But the agenda was different from the agenda of American libertarians or European libertarians, because when you started talking about drugs, about guns, about prostitution, about child purchase, child sales or children sales or body part sales. This is the kind of, you are described and put into the position of a freak. So for us, the fundamental opportunity is how to frame development and transition based on our ideas to not to get into first option oligarchic state or in Ukraine, or oligarchic and very aggressive authoritarian state like in Russia, or not to be bogged by bureaucracy of the welfare state, or what I call general interventionist model, which is prevailing in the whole world. And now I'm like finalizing my 13th book, which is when I offering the blueprint for development, for developing and transitional country. And essentially one of the key points there is very simple. That's what, the reason I do that is that you get much bigger audience when you talk about taxation, when you talk about money, when you talk about privatization, when you talk about pension reforms. And in all my books, I had blueprints for all these reforms. But the fundamental thing that is common to many emerging and transitional countries, and I was in Africa, in Europe, in Asia. At one point, I trained Cubans, and you have just absolutely one thing. They want some change. They don't know how to move from point A to point B. So my innovation approach is very simple. You have, first of all, political freedom, democracy, but second thing, which is very, very important and is ignored completely, have economic constitution, which its major role is to put a straitjacket on the government in the form of what? Inflation must not exceed 2% in the area, in the situation of monetary competition. So I don't like monetary monopoly of the national currency. Then government expenditures, no more than 20-25%, depending on the commitments that the current government has. Then the third is the volume of government assets in this government hands. It should not be more than 10-15%. Then no introduction of tariff barriers, both tariff and non-tariff barriers. And if you talk about this straitjacket, then you minimize the risks of populism and come back of Marxists, of Leninists, of Stalinists, communists in all our country. I wrote the book in 2010 called Economic Constitution, where I just detailed all this. But right now, my proposal is, for example, like in a computer game, level 1 for any developing country. First, you should meet some criteria in inflation, not inflation, but in quality of governance, which is indicated, and we have all these governance indicators in the World Bank Institute. Economic freedom in maybe top 30. Then in like you have different questions should be answered by the different social groups. So also you have like 20 indicators, benchmarks. If you don't meet them, you cannot move government expenditures from 20% to like 23. And so that means that if, like in Belarus right now, or Ukraine or Russia likewise, this is a case where similar. Major institutions were imported from Western Europe, from America, from works of theorists from developing economics, namely Italy, you have Germany, you have England, you have American developing economic theorists, and nothing changed in the time. So we've been working on the blueprint worked out in the first half of the 20th century without any understanding of what Ayn Rand, what Mises wrote about in their books. So I said, and as I keep telling Russian colleagues, you guys don't you feel like Aborigines, like all these, primeval people when they met missionaries from Europe and giving you for gold, like, glass necklaces or something like that. So they felt like abused, but I keep explaining to them, why don't you use Russian ruble if it's the tool of exploitation and stealing your wealth from the people, and keep going like that. So that is why in our case, if we are late reformers, has this advantage of not making mistakes. But here you should keep in mind the strength of what I call a nomenclature and force structures that in Belarus would like to monetize their staters, because Belarus is 80% state economy. We still have all major assets in state land, state hands. You have oil sector, gas sector, infrastructure, energy, post office, railroad, you name it. Everything is, we have even state-owned hairdressers. And it all reminds me of centrally planned economy. And everybody, that when I'm in America or in Europe, I said, you should have excursions of kids or anybody who favors socialism to Belarus to see how bad it is. Because right now when Russia was the source of growth, Belarusian economy grew quite rapidly. You know, we had like 3 periods in our history. 1995, 2005, doubling GDP from 15 to 30 billion dollars. Then unique period in Belarusian history, doubling GDP from 30 to 60 in just 4 years, 2005, 2008. And if somebody, and I got a lot of criticism, well, you said that free market delivers. How about that? Lukashenko favoring dictatorship and no economic freedom, doubled GDP in dollar terms in 4 years. When you try to break down that growth, that phenomenon, and you see the numbers that are based on oil, gas, energy prices, and saturation and what we call artificial stimulation of demand and supply in the Belarusian economy. And now in 2020, the average annual GDP growth is less than 0.9%, which is 3-4 times lower than the world average. And this is the end. So Belarusian state planned, or Savok, what I call it, Soviet-style centrally planned economy, it does not die in just one blow. It dies away, like it like, you know, it phases away in a way, right?
Yeah. Amit wanted to ask something. Amit, do you like to ask directly? And if not, I will ask on your behalf. Amit, would you like to speak? Okay, so I'll go with it. Amit wanted to ask about the Mises Institute in Belarus. Did you need any special government approval to open such institute? Did the government create any problems in your endeavors to preach for free market?
The peculiarity of the regime is that it's ignorant. It doesn't understand free market. It doesn't understand, you know, when you talk about Mises, everybody, the first time I remember one of the biggest state paper put Mises like M.I.S.E.S. They thought that it like had an acronym or something. They didn't even know that this is a name of the person. And there is a official, formal way of activities, and there is unofficial, and informal, which is definitely what we favor. So at one point, if you want to be efficient, if you want to advocate, there is no way for you to stick to law. Law is the source of inefficiency, then law kills you, kills your message, kills your way of doing things. That's why you have to find balance between what is legal, what is illegal, and I said most of our activities are on this gray area. I wouldn't elaborate on that, because if somebody listens to me, I might have some problems. But when we talk to our friends in Atlas Network, in other organizations, Ayn Rand Institute, the Objectivist Center, Atlas Society right now. As I've been, the people I met originally were not from Ayn Rand Institute, but from Atlas Society. and they like still have very good relations with them. So they understand, because every time you show $1 or any assistance officially, then you are having problems. According to law, you must register any grant agreement, any assistance in a special humanitarian department of presidential administration. So that means that you must be like a loyal citizen in order to register and show everything. And nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's like with the legislation on opening bank accounts abroad. That became legal the beginning of this year, but everybody had it for 20 years. So that's some of the, but if you are not attentive enough and expose it, then you can go to prison. For example, for doing what I've been doing for many, many years, for discrediting president, I can go to prison for 3 years. So you have to be very careful how to word your articles, what you say. For some activities or connections with foreign organizations, you can also having criminal prosecution. So in different times of my activity, in 1996, the authorities accused me of being CIA spy. Then I was a KGB spy. Then I was FSB spy. Then I was Brussels spy. So if authorities don't understand something or cannot follow, they say, oh, this is a spy. And people still have this memory of Soviet times when spying was something like mysterious, damaging, and people, of course, did not ask for any explanation or evidence why this guy can be called a spy or not. So this is a kind of very touchy, and we had very many cases when my friends and colleagues were arrested and were even sentenced to some years in prison for revealing too many details of their activities.
Yeah, and this, of course, bring to the question about the recording of our meeting today. Does it risk you in any way to post it on Facebook later on?
That's why I could not answer your question in a different way. If we had a meeting over coffee, I would tell you how we operate. But
okay.
Pata, my friend from Georgia, knows a lot about the situation in Belarus. I think that Michael, but you left Belarus in 1990, so you can hardly, but if you know how it is in an authoritarian country, you can hardly imagine. You can well imagine that you must be very creative in order to not to get into the hands of the police.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else like to ask? There is a question on the chat. I don't know if you see it. What do you think about the prospect on the Belarus currency after the revolution? This is more financial question.
All right. So
yeah.
it's very easy, right? In my elementary proposal, which I promote both for Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia, and Tunis, all emerging and developing countries. Currency like Belarusian. So we, if you take 1995, 2011, 2019, Belarus is in top 15, I think, worst countries in inflation in the world. So the Belarusian currency is a national monopoly that delivers like monopoly. Over 80% of Belarusians, and that's what we call people's currencies, US dollar. We have dollarized economy all over. And that's why we all, when you ask, like you buy something, how much is it? Nobody expects you to give a price in rubles. It's all dollars. You buy a car, you buy an apartment, you buy whatever, it's all in dollars. That's why I think that my proposal, which is also in this national business platform, is to legalize 5 currencies, including Belarusian ruble, let it compete, and legalize, of course, gold standard, and of course all e-currencies that are in operation. So essentially make competition. And then if Belarusian ruble is such in a miserable state that it is less than 5% of all circulation, then we can just say goodbye to it or privatize altogether. So if somebody would buy Belarusian ruble currency and make it turn into a private currency, I don't care. In this case, I'm fully consistent Austrian libertarian or objectivist.
Yeah. I see that Alex is either raising his hand or something. Alex, would you like to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question about the process, the protests right now. Is the economy still running? The businesses are still open, the small businesses? Can the people still like buy usual stuff or as before, or is it affected by the protests?
No. All streets, all shops are open, e-commerce functions, you can get food delivered, you can get anything delivered. We have Wildberries, we have, which is a Russian analog of Alibaba or Amazon. Shops are full of stuff. We have collective farm markets. There's nothing. There's no food shortage at all, so forget about it. It's no shortage of anything. But the problem is that for the last like 4 years, Lukashenko drove wages with the rate much higher than productivity rate. So in 2020 and 21, there will be the payment of the judgment time for this kind of eating out the future. So when you spend something that you don't earn, you must take responsibility for that. And one of the threats right now is that Lukashenko again will stick to inflation tax or devaluation. And now, right now, Belarusian ruble lost about 25% of its value since the beginning of the year, and it may reach and like lose another 50% if again National Bank is put pressure on and it started printing money into the economy.
Okay, so thank you very much. If there is no more question, I think we are over the hour that I allocate for this meeting, and I know that you have some change that you need to take care of in the streets and in the
that's right.
Politics. Yes,
tonight, I think tonight there will be like 500,000 people in the streets of Minsk. So that'll be amazing. Please follow pictures and videos. Minsk now is very beautiful.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody. I will open the mic for everybody in a moment, and also ask you if there is any way that you like to state for us, in any way that we can either help, follow, share, do something that will assist your effort, let us know. And we'll try to assist as much as we can. So I'm muting everybody. Yeah.
Right. If you just go to my website or Facebook page, which is Jaroslav Romanchuk. Most of that is in Russian, but some of the stuff is in English. But I'm sure that some of you know Russian, or you can just get.
Yeah, I will put the Facebook profile.
Right.
I will put it on the chat so everybody can copy and link, because I can't read it, but I want to thank Pata for opening the door, because it was Pata effort and announcement that got me to know you. So thank you very much, Pata, for this.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for your such interesting conversation. I hope message was well received by your friends and colleagues. Now we know more about Belarus, and of course, Jaroslav, stay strong, and we are with you.
Thank you, Father.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will note that in Georgia there is huge interest over this process and a lot of support, and you know that we are absolutely on your side. So stay.
Yeah. Thank you very much for support.
Thank you.
That's why everybody is within 9 rand. It's like some stuff. Somebody.
Okay. One moment. I'll mute everybody just to hear what you said. Yeah.
I think that it's good to know to be part of Ayn Rand family worldwide. And as I said, I want this kind of conflict, historic conflict, to somehow lead to kind of destruction of division lines within Ayn Rand organizations, both in the United States and worldwide. Because for us, I don't know whether for you, Israel, you are a free democratic country, but for us, when there's a hair splitting and this kind of fight, internal fight, it definitely hampers and damages the image of libertarianism, objectivism. Yeah. So I think that, and one more thing, which is a very good message to our American friends and friends in developed world, is that in order to fight socialism in your country, like it's the case in America, use us, our experience, to demonstrate to American people the nature of socialism, social aspects, moral aspects, governmental aspects, because they have this kind of, very romantic Scandinavian attitude to socialism, which is like bullshit, of course. But at the same time, when somebody, as we do, fight for freedom, and with this somebody who still sticks to socialism, which means repression, then I think that people like people who run for president in America right now with the vice presidential candidate for Joe Biden, that would be really Kamala Harris, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Or people from the left in American Senate or Congress. We have to work with them also. Otherwise, because right now the stage of idea fight is not just, national, it's global. And our opponents definitely realized that long time ago.
Yeah. So thank you. And this is the beginning of new friendships. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, everybody.
Let's stay in touch, right?
See you on our next Zoom to Freedom and next activity. Bye.
Good. Goodbye. Goodbye.